Are you wondering how you can contribute to Funniest Thing?
Don't flip out. Go to patreon.com/funniest thing.
Whoa!
Oh!
That would have been crazy.
Welcome to The Funniest Thing,
Yes.
where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes. I'm Darrell.
I'm Ed.
And we're broadcasting live from Chobo's Studios in...
beautiful downtown Van Nuys.
That's right. And today's episode is...
Today's episode is You're Closer Than You Think with Johnny Marfa of Johnny Marfa and the Lights. He's been on the show before. Fan favorite. We're so happy to have him back in the studio for the second segment. It's the truth, for crying out loud. The moment we take God as our partner, we discover we are inches from our goal, not the miles we've believed. The key is to let go of our efforts to make something happen and entrust the entire process to the hands of a loving God. When we do, we find we are guided by joy and joyful nudges. Our only responsibility is to heed them. On this episode, Darrell and Ed encourage everyone to decide to be the great men and women we are, not the struggling person we think we are. And during the second segment, Barnyard dancin' Johnny Marfa kicks us into high gear with today's reading, which is God's Got This. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay, good. Right before we turned the show on, turned on the little cameras and rolled the dice and got everything moving here, I turned on the song Drop Kick Me Jesus by Bobby Bear. Enjoyed that in the green room. And it really dawned on me, this is actually directly connected with the conversation Darrell and I were having on the way over here, which is, so the whole concept of drop kick me Jesus through the posts of life, and over and neither left nor the right, straight through the heart of them righteous uprights, drop kick me Jesus through the goalposts of life. The key is that...
Well, for our listeners in Europe,
yeah,
we got to let them know goalposts are American football goal.
They kick a field goal through there. But what occurred to me is we are like that ball, and if we don't realize that there is a loving God, higher power, life force, we would be looking up at those goalposts thinking we're never going to get there. We think we're way further away than we really are. But Darrell and I were just talking about this. And this is why we love unity in particular. Anything that emphasizes there's this loving presence that as much as we work with our minds and want to get our thinking in alignment with life and affirmative, it's not just so that because we're in control, and it's to cooperate with this loving force that is actually kicking us through the goalposts of life and actually knows where we want to go and is really good aim, better aim than our rational mind could ever even imagine. So, because we were talking about this on the way here regarding like certain coaches and certain people who dip into the spiritual things for their teachings and programs and stuff, but they don't go as far. At the end, they'll often tie it back to, though, you have to do a lot of hard work. And while there is a lot of effort required to sometimes to move our mind back into the flow with this, it's a lot of that effort is forgiving ourselves, being kind to ourselves, resisting the urge to push and shove or try to go too fast or try to be better than someone else or even try to be better than ourselves, because the goal is to recognize who we really are and what's really going on. This isn't something that we're just contriving with. This is something that when we do our morning routine and these things, we actually experience this loving presence and it changes everything.
Yes. The problem is, for me, when people in the past would share that, God's with me, God cares for me, God will take care of you. But, and that's the big killer, but you're going to have to work hard in the outside physical arena to make things happen. So you're going to have to use your own will to figure things out, to manipulate conditions, to push, get in there, make it happen. And time has proven that those methods do not work. They just cause stress, physical sickness, illness, disease. And you may get little scrapes and a little bag of nuts. And so you push even harder. That's the problem. But here's the great news. The great news is the only effort, real effort, is an internal effort within myself to keep myself in a faithful belief that God is on it, that this loving, benevolent force is working all the time in my favor. There's a great quote. I cannot believe I didn't bring it. I was going to bring it.
All right, let's hear it.
It's by the Emily Cady. Lessons in Truth is the book. And she says that your desire is God knocking at the door of your heart. And that it means not now I have to go figure out how to make it happen. It means that it is already on its way to you. Well, then what do I do? What's my part in all this? My part is to continue to keep my mind out of the arena of fear, envy, jealousy, worry, concern. When I do that, I'm naturally in the flow. And using that song, Dropkick Me Jesus, through the goalposts of life is a perfect metaphor, because it's not just I'm thinking, how am I ever going to get through those goalposts? I'm standing on the ground that's high up. How am I going to get there? And then, all of a sudden, boom, we're kicked through them. But it also is a metaphor because a team of people and opportunities get me from one end of the field to the other. Like in football, it's the players. I just need to remember I'm the ball. They're doing play after play. Oh, guess who I met today, Ed? I wonder why I met this guy. He's a nice guy. Then all of a sudden that leads to this and then the other thing. And all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, how did this happen? I mean, I knew what I was desiring, and then I was taking joyful hunches along the way that didn't even feel like work. That's the thing. From my own experience, when I'm doing work outside of the realm of going along with God's will for me, it feels like hell. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell myself, well, you said it earlier this morning. It's like a lot of coaches will say a lot of this great stuff. We often quote a lot of what they share. They're saying a lot of good spiritual truths. The problem is, it's laid out in the seminars like that's all good up into a point. Up into a point. Like when it comes to marketing, well, there you got to really start forcing your will.
Right.
And doing all this. And we're not saying marketing per se is wrong, but we are saying that from our own experience and from the experience of a lot of people we know who are successful and apply these things, they will tell you the miraculous ways that a marketing opportunity fell in their lap.
Right.
Or, I've been talking to Robert Leashock lately, and he's an actor. He's been on the show. And we just went over the miracle of his first big break.
Right.
And he said a lot of what we say about himself. He said, it worked at that time in my life because I was $15,000 in debt. I thought this is such an impossibility that when I heard the message that all I have to do is really work on my thoughts of keeping the joy I have for the idea of being on a series and being well paid to do what I love to do. And anytime that started to fall down, like when he was waiting tables at a Chinese restaurant,
right,
he would go, no, this is just temporary. This thing that I believe, this desire is already on its way to me. And that's where we're going to go into these 3 breaths. That's where reminding ourselves the truth is we are always closer than we think.
Right.
And the only thing that slows it down is me doubting that that's the fact and starting to get focused on all little things I think I need to do. And this is the key, to make myself worthy
Mm-hmm.
of getting that good. That's
Right.
the killer.
That's
Because
true.
if it comes right down to it, that's all it ever is. So we're saying, forget about trying to make myself worthy on the external. Let's focus on reminding ourselves of the truth. Because what happened in Robert Leashock's case was he's in $15,000 of debt. He's not getting any real work acting. He's wondering, what's the use? He's in his 30s. Like, why? What's the point of all this? He's barely making ends meet, and he's working as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant in New York City. But what happened? He just said, I just kept believing it because I was so far over my head. I would just, no, I wouldn't allow myself to go down into any like complacent place. And sure enough, he gets an audition. He almost said, oh, this is, I've got to go to California. Goes to California, does the audition, flies back to New York. And funniest thing, he ended up getting a series, 26 episodes guaranteed, $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the lead in Earth Final Conflict, which was a Star Trek series.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we've seen this. I mean, we got stories just from this week of miracles. And this is another thing. We can't dismiss the little steps along the way. You know what I mean? Like, we have some examples just from our life
Sure.
this week of when the two of us kept our conscious mind out of the equation so Jesus could drop kick us into, the next down, to the next, you know what I mean? On
Yeah.
the way to the goalpost. We got another little pass here, handoff there.
Yeah. I found this quote that you shared from, I think Sue Hodgson shared it with us that goes along with this. I'm not sure if this was the one you were thinking of earlier, but it says, what if we believed, it's from Julia Cameron, Faith and Will. What if we believed in a benevolent and expansive force? What if we consider the idea that our dreams come from God and that God has the power to accomplish them? What if our grandiose schemes are actually God's will for us? What if God's will is expansive and colorful and exciting? What if turning our will and our life over to God is an invitation to adventure, not to drudgery? What if God is for us and not against us? We were calling
Yes.
that pronoia recently, the opposite of paranoia, the belief that the world is, the universe is scheming
Yes.
on our behalf. And, I like the one more thing that when you spoke about the drop kick me Jesus through the goalpost of life, it's like, that's like right at the moment where the goal is closest, but our rational mind thinks it's the furthest.
I'm never going to make it.
Yeah, that's when, like Emmett Fox will call it the devil's last ditch. It's like right when we're about to go through
I'm going to
them
screw up
goalposts,
this kick.
all of a sudden we start overthinking it, right? That's what
Yes.
happens, like sports and all the. I mean, I even heard Kobe Bryant, like saw an interview with him, in which the person was like, "Tell us about how you all you want to do is win, right? And you never want to lose." And he goes, "Well, actually, he's like, what I learned is if all you want to do is win, and you get to the end of the game." And all of a sudden it looks like it might not happen, you're going to be so worried about that you're not going to be present to the moment to let what needs to come through. Same thing if you're worried, I don't want to lose. If it starts to look like that,
Yes.
you're going to start fighting with that instead of just being present and letting the game come to you. And so a lot of this is realizing like our good and our worthiness and the joy of living doesn't come from the accomplishing of the goals. It comes from being here. Being here and recognizing the miraculous nature that we are here and letting the life force flow through us. I had a case at my school. One of my clients that I'm working with was all of a sudden, I did a bunch of stuff where I was required to talk to people, and I was making a lot of progress. Then for like a day or two, my attention got drawn to something else. And then on the day that I wasn't putting any more effort into it, the student, this is the big deal, found a friend that he really gets along with, instead of trying to hang out with some other people that a lot of the conflict with them was they kind of just got shoved together and they were having all these conflicts. There's parents involved, blah, blah, blah. And I was blessing. And then for a day, I didn't touch it. And all of a sudden I look out, I go on the playground and he's with a new person and they're just chatting away.
Yes.
Like in a way I could have never forced it at all. So this is what we're talking about, letting go of the wheel and trusting that like the action is when we're in harmony with the flow. But sometimes when I do a lot of action, I start to think, no, it's me. I'm doing it. I'm getting so high. I can do it all. I can keep going. And then I tend to burn out and bump up against people. I got chippy with an indie last night. Because I had been going and going and going. And I just like fell into this little thing. Thankfully, he and I prayed together afterwards and just let the whole thing go. Because I've come to realize we all stumble. We all trip. The best thing to do is get back into the flow as quickly as possible.
Well, we got to remember too the desire. The desire is that kid has friends, so that means God's already working on it.
That's right.
But when you back off, then it can happen. It's crazy that that's how it works. It's these little things. There's a story in You Unlimited. I'm just going to paraphrase it before we do these breaths, and that's this. He talks about a woman that was so obsessed because she had a health concern that was diagnosed as being very serious. And she was so distraught over it. It was all she could think of, and that just made her worse. And he knew, because she came to him for help, that this is only going to hasten the illness, this fear and this obsession with it. So she already was a believer and, thinking the affirmative and trusting in God, but she just couldn't get there. So he goes, you know what? I got to find something to take her mind off this, just like what happened to you.
Yeah.
So then God could do the work. So he goes, what are you interested in? Oh, I love languages. I used to teach language. He goes, okay, well, why don't you see if there's a place where you could, and if I hear of anything, sure enough, right away, she could do this volunteering with teaching languages to kids. She started getting so involved with that that she started forgetting about worrying about her illness because she loved it so much.
Right.
So she's worrying less, loving life more. Long story short, the disease goes into remission. But she's continuing. Now she's working, doing this as a full-time job, loving what she's doing, teaching languages. The doctors now, it's gone. No sign of it all. And now he wraps up the story like now she's well in her 80s and she's still loving life and doing what she loves, which is teaching the languages.
That's awesome.
Along with believing this stuff. So the idea of getting our conscious mind off the problem it doesn't necessarily, if you're having trouble with trying to get a faithful idea in there, you could just do anything to take your mind off the problem.
Yeah.
Because God is on it. That's what we're saying. The players are on the field. You can call them your angels or just coincidental people that are going to come in your life. But things are being arranged on the unseen plane always for our benefit. I have to hang my hat on that. And I get evidence of it because every time I back off and stop worrying about the condition, I get a sign of land or a big windfall.
Yeah, because it can be tempting when we're in a really stressful situation to think we need to construct our good and construct the solutions with our mind, with our thinking. And this happened to me during my morning routine. I told you the other day, my mind was spinning off of something, and then I said, wait a minute. What do I know? Like if I wasn't stressed, what do I know? God is here. Life is fully, all is well. The law, I think, what do I think about God? What do I think I know? The law is ever increasing good. Nothing is ever being held against me. This idea of God and all is well is not something that I'm constructing or contriving, or this is something that all the great teachers that we read and everyone basically looks to got a direct experience with this and realizes it's the only reality. So more than trying to construct our good, like you said, it's about opening up and becoming receptive and recognizing that it's already way better than that worried part of ourselves can even know. And it can seem so real because when we look at life through the lens of fear, our mind is so creative and imaginative. It takes everyone and casts them in the role to make that fear seem real. So we really have to blast ourselves out of that with joy. And the good part is, when we think it's the worst, Emmett Fox will call it the devil's last ditch. Darrell and I will say, something good must be happening because my mind is freaking out. And where'd you get these breaths from?
Well, I also want to say it's if you have a problem thinking, yeah, well, I've heard this in church, but no, this is scientific. It's the law of the universe. The universe is always expansive, always expanding.
Yeah.
It's always progressing. It's always looking to fulfill itself, not destroy itself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scientific. So we're just cooperating with what is.
And if you're saying I've only heard this in church and I don't know, then stop going to church if you think it's just something you heard in church and isn't real. Go somewhere where you believe what is being said and practice it and apply it and find out that it works.
Okay, so
that's what we're saying. That's what this stuff is all about, is practical application of this stuff. So what do you got?
So the 3 breaths came from 2 things. One, the title of the show, but also from this card we got from Lois Conklin, which I'll read.
Okay. We got a bunch from Conklin, by the way. Lois, they must have got stuck somewhere in a post office somewhere, but they all arrived at the same time. Maybe we'll save some for next week.
Yes, they came in a giant, like, poof.
But thank you, Lois Conklin, for sending this to us.
Like a shotgun blast of Lois cards. Okay.
Yeah, nothing better.
I am is our personal affirmation of who we are and what we are called to be. Whenever we say I am, it must be followed by the truth of our being. Because whatever we put after I am, it's going to come chasing after us, I should say, which is a good thing because listen, I am beautiful. I am courageous. I am capable. I am powerful. I am creative. And that's by Sandra Campbell of Unity. She also Lois wrote, I'm with you every week. Thanks for all the encouragement. Love, Lois Conklin.
Nice.
So I was thinking, we're closer to one of the things, because I'm hanging on. That idea is helping me all week. Anytime I get that, but no, I'm closer than I think. Like arrangements are being made. So I realize when I'm doing it is when I'm starting to get a little like concerned in my life. So the 3 breaths were, do you want to say them first or go right into
let's
them?
take a deep breath. When my heart starts to sink, I'm closer than I think.
When my heart starts to sink, I'm closer than I think.
When my heart starts to sink, I'm closer than I think. Beautiful. And I want to say too, rather than what I just said about if you're going to church and you're not believing it, don't try going to church and believing those simple ideas. If you are going there and actually apply them practically to everyone and everything in your life, take one of those simple. That's really what it's about. That's really what the unity movement, what New Thought is about. It was more people would go to church.
Well, it's what Jesus was about.
I agree.
Living it.
Well, that's where the New Thought movement, which according to Charles Fillmore was a direct extension of the original teachings of Jesus, which is, but what in real time, people would go to church and then they'd get together afterwards just to talk about, okay, how we now what are we going to do to apply this? What does this mean for me
personally?
How can I direct this towards things that are going on in my life? Let's thank Indy at Chobo Studios real quick. Thank you, Indy. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Loving the show so far.
Do you have a Johnny Marfa back there, by the way? Any chance?
We do have Johnny. He's right here. Hey.
Oh, boy.
Wow. That's the first time, ladies, you'll see him without his cowboy hat.
Yeah.
He only takes it off for 2 reasons. When he's in there with headphones, and I can't say the other reason on the air.
I didn't even know he took it off. For that. Yes.
Those are the only 2 times Johnny Marfa takes his cowboy hat off.
Yes. So, yes.
Hopefully his wife won't hear this.
Well, hopefully she already knows this. Indy, were you going to say something else, buddy?
I was just going to say the surfboard behind you reminds me of an episode of SpongeBob where they have a song called Fun, and it's F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. Mm-hmm. N is for anywhere and anytime at all down here in the deep blue sea.
Beautiful.
Wow, perfect.
Well, let's thank Jeff Comfort.
That's a perfect lead-in for Comfort.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to get to see him next week. We're going to be off next week from the show, but we will be on speaking at Unity Village at the Fillmore Bible Society gathering, and we'll be speaking on Saturday. We'll be staying at the Unity Village Hotel. We're really, really excited. I've kind of had a combination of, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then it gives way to this wonderful feeling that doesn't matter what we do, it's going to be perfect. We were invited there to bring the message.
We can do whatever we want. We're not ministers.
Well, that's the good news. That's right. That's right. Well, not the traditional ministers. But I was thinking how perfect it is, because last night I was talking to my wife about this, that the way we apply it in our daily lives and love it as much as someone who runs a church, but like this is what the Unity movement really was all about. So I was thinking how perfect it is that we're going to be there.
Yes.
Yeah. But what about Jeff Comfort each week?
He takes us
right into the comfort zone. I want to bless these Patreon contributions and thank you for them, man. They keep growing. The ministry, public service ministry, as we call it, continues to grow.
Thanks to you.
Thanks to you. I know Chobo loves you for it. Kathleen Lepoff joined us on the Patreon, and she said, Darrell and Ed, you guys are my morning routine, evening routine, and sometimes my in-between routine. You make a difference in the lives of so many people. I love your open and honest hearts. Have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's program. Love, Kathy Lepoff. Grace Deathridge, who was able to join us on our Tuesday Prosperity Zoom that we've been doing for Patreon people, said, thank you for the wonderful class. So great to see you all and share inspiration. Amazing things are happening here, pointing to my heart. Funniest thing, these last few days I've been affirming God is closer than close. God is here.
Wow.
Or using the word love instead. Love is closer than close. Love is here. And I wanted to say that Stephen Tom Thorpe came up with this great affirmation during that podcast, because at Unity of Santa Barbara, they say amazing things are happening here when they begin their service.
Meaning at the church.
But he came over and he put his hand on my heart because he heard me sharing, and he said, when you were sharing, what I realized, because when we're in the midst of change and transformation, our minds go batty sometimes. We can't figure it out. We feel like things are falling apart. We think they're not going the right way. But that's when we can affirm, and thank you to Stephen Tom Thorpe. He put his hand on my heart and he said, amazing things are happening here. And we can remind ourselves to go into our heart, and the amazing things are happening here. And of course, just like a plant, it's disrupting the surface, it's crashing through, it's changing, it's transforming. And that's us. We're always growing, we're always transforming. And we can remind ourselves that amazing things are happening here. If you want to send us anything, funniest thing, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. Someone who frequently sends us things is Catherine Powell. She said, hi, Darrell and Ed. I keep giggling about when Darrell was using the word midst in a recent episode.
You just said mitts.
No, I said midst. Midst. You really got to ride that thing out like a little bit of a lisp at the end. Midst.
Mitts.
Doesn't make sense to have a D, an S, and a T. But I was in my car and was laughing out loud. Darrell, when you spelled it out, M-I-D-S-T, I was cracking up. I love the way you two use humor and spirituality together. It's the best. I also wanted to tell you to have an incredible time at Unity Village. I wish I could be there when you were there. What a special place. Lots of love to you both, Catherine. Oh, we're going to get to see Janet Prince because she's going to be there.
Yes, one of our listeners and guests. Yes, we got to close this segment with this reading.
Okay, I got a reading that this whole show, we had totally different ideas of what we're going to read, but right before it, this popped out. I had no readings planned. I figured Darrell would. He always does. But as I put my laptop into my backpack to go here today, I just noticed this binding on the in my backpack, and my intuitive mind
said, grab it.
And
it's the perfect reading for this show.
And I just opened it up to page 156 of all things, and it said, the unfolding, because this goes right to what we've been saying, the unfolding of a right now consciousness. God, there's so many lessons in spiritual truth about how you have to come
right
back
now
to now. Let go of all that other stuff and get into the flow of now.
The thoughts we think now are creating our future reality. Now is the moment.
And the good we seek is arriving now. Now. The pathway to our good is arriving now. Everything we want and desire is arriving now. The unfolding of a right now consciousness ensures continuous prosperity, for it is always now. There's no tomorrow to anticipate or work for. There's only now to make use of and enjoy. When we achieve this now consciousness, we leave behind us all limiting ideas of time. Most of us have consciously or unconsciously accepted the belief that prosperity comes only after long years of training, experience, work, and waiting.
Ugh.
Often we are told when we are young that it will take us years to become successful and prosperous. Prosperity is held out as a reward to be gained late in life, a reward for sacrifice, hard work, and waiting. This is not true.
Yes, it's
now
not.
is the time for us to accept the idea of God's riches, always available to us when we need them. And remember I told you when I was driving home, there was a book suggested by you, Kirky, Stephen.
Yes.
First Kirky, then you and Stephen. And I was like, oh, that's a little pricey book for the things we usually buy online.
But you were willing to buy it and not be cheap.
I bought it. Next day, I took a different route home. I was talking to someone on the phone.
It was the same day.
No, it was the very next day.
Oh, it was the next day. It seemed so soon.
It was the very next day, I believe, that I drove home. I was talking to someone on the phone. And my intuitive mind, because my rational mind was involved in this phone conversation, saw one of those birdhouse bookstores, like on the, not bookstores, book libraries, like on a, looks like a little
free lending library.
Free lending library, if you will, at the corner, someone, they in neighborhoods. I pulled over without thinking while I'm talking to my buddy. I thought, the intuitive thought came through my mind. I bet there's a New Thought book in there. Maybe and so I went over there. It had 4 sides. I went around. The last side, I looked down. The one book that pops out because of the color of it, I pull it out. It's a brand new version of the very book that you guys had told me to order. A brand new version. And so I was able to cancel the one I had ordered.
Isn't this amazing?
I mean, it was never read. It looked like it had never been opened.
But that's proof that the desire, even the smallest desire, means it's already coming to us as long as we're willing to accept it. You're even willing to go ahead. All right, I'll pay for it. But do you see how it really is about keeping my rational mind that's trying to make things happen out of the equation, and the intuition just takes us places that bring it, it's like a matchmaker.
Yeah.
It's like boink.
Yeah.
Because there's no logical, you can't even say anything logical about how that occurred the way it occurred.
Well, because there's no logic to how loved we are.
That's right.
No logic can ever understand that we are loved. Like for our parent, or God, like a parent doesn't have to divide love between Johnny, Darrell, and Mike. When Darrell comes to me, if you're my son, you draw the love out of me.
Yes.
Johnny draws the love out of me. Indeed, it becomes more, not less. I don't have to split it up. And our rational mind will never understand and cannot even comprehend that there is a limitless supply of love available to us at all times. But when we tap into it and feel it, like I know you love Bob Marley, he quoted, who feels it knows it, Lord. People say, if you know, you know. And hopefully the show is helping everyone know this stuff, because it's not about what we say. We don't want to be quoted. We're hoping that you're getting to experience this stuff the way we are.
Yes.
So coming up next, Barnyard dancin, Johnny Marfa of Johnny Marfa and the Lights kicks us into high gear with today's reading, God's Got This. Thank you for listening to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed over here at Chobo Studios. Welcome back to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, bringing it about. No, this is not bringing it about from the inside out. This show is called You're Closer Than You Think. And in the studio today, we have Johnny Marfa from Johnny Marfa and the Lights. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm beautiful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have you been enjoying things from the green room?
Yeah. I love the show. You guys, it's just like so much to think about. I have so many thoughts and ideas, and it's always spot on, It's always spot on.
Well, that's why you're here, man, because Darrell and you have connected in real life, in real time, as neighbors in the same neighborhood, talking about this stuff, right?
There is nothing like a a mid-morning dog walk meet where you actually stand on the corner for 15 minutes and talk about this kind of stuff. It's my favorite part of the day.
It's a game changer.
Dude, that is awesome. That's always awesome. By the way, thank you, Nancy Norman, for these wonderful mugs, and Rod Schweitzer for the cold brew that's inside of these mugs. We definitely couldn't do it without you. We're all getting high as kites over here on our caffeine fix.
As Johnny Marfa puts it, it's all we got left.
So
So I want to hear from Johnny, but I also want to shout out, because you had an amazing encounter with a listener, Penny Akashi.
Oh my God. So this is where you got to keep the rational mind at bay.
Yeah, this is exactly, John, this is exactly what we've been talking about. Darrell had and Stephen had this crazy.
Yeah, Stephen Sidlow called
Stephen
me.
Tom Thorpe, if you will.
Stephen Tom Thorpe.
That's his stage name.
Yes.
Which we gave to him.
So he...
and he uses it.
He gave me a call. He goes, "Hey, do you want to eat at this restaurant in Westwood? Not far from where we live, for kebabs, chicken kebabs.
What's it called? California Fresh?
California Fresh.
Really good.
So I said, all right, let's do it. I meet him there, and then afterwards, he had a horseback riding lesson. So he had to go in one direction. I had to go in the other. But he had some time to kill, and so did I, before we went our separate ways. So we were debating, are we going to go to get coffee down in Culver City? Because he could, I could. But then he had like this, he goes, why don't we go up in Westwood? And my first thought is, Westwood for coffee? But then I said, you know what? You're right. Let's just go for it.
Do something new, man.
Do something new. Get out of this loop.
Yeah.
So we didn't know where. He goes, Prophet. I go, I don't like Prophet. I go, I think Pete's is across from the Hammer. And they go, yeah, we could walk in the Hammer Museum. It's free. So we get our coffees and fart around for a few minutes in a new place. So one thing, first of all, we had to park on the street, right? There's two spots less than 20 yards away from the entrance of the Hammer and this coffee shop that I thought was still Pete's. And they're both in the shade.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a hot day. So I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. So we go walk into the coffee shop. It's since changed to an Alfred's. Yeah. And I wanted to get a drip coffee instead of a shot. So we ordered drip coffees. They're fantastic. And but after the first sip, you could tell if it's going to be a good coffee buzz or a bad coffee. Yeah, I'm like, this is going to be good. So we go into the Hammer. We're just having a good time going in and out of galleries.
If you're in LA and you want to go somewhere and just visit and just the great art, it's free, and the views in there. You've been to the Hammer, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a lovely place. The courtyard, everything about that place is wonderful.
Yeah, and you could treat yourself to walking around a great little neighborhood, Westwood, all the little shops and
UCLA
eateries. So we're walking through there now, because we're on a clock, because he has a horse riding lesson. And he has to leave by a certain time to get to where the horses are. So I go, okay, it's time to go. We go walking out. On the way out, there's a restaurant in there, like a high-end restaurant in the museum in the atrium. And we have to pass it to get out. I mean, if we parked any place else, we would have went out a different entrance. We're heading out, and all of a sudden, Steven goes, wait a minute, is that Penny? I go, Penny. And it's a listener of the show who also would come hear us talk at Unity of the West Side in Culver City. So I'm like, holy cow, that's her. So we look, she noticed us. She goes, oh my God. She's with all her friends. They did like a docent tour through the museum. She goes, these are the ladies.
Yeah.
So we said, hello, ladies. She gets up and she goes, oh my God, I got to tell you, please keep doing what you're doing. She goes, anytime I'm down, I put on the show and it just gives me a lift. So I'm not feeling so blue, and it changes my whole day. She was like saying, please keep doing it. It was so positive. I mean, she's an older lady, and it was the whole thing. It was like mind blowing. I'm like, dude, if I didn't come here, you know what I mean?
Follow the hunch, man.
Yeah.
Follow the hunch.
And these are just little signs of land that we get.
She's also one of the more stylish.
Yeah, she's stylish,
beautiful people we know, man. We
love counts.
You,
yeah, so.
Yeah.
But hearing them say this, we got to remember, don't dismiss these things. Like, connect the dots.
Yeah, follow it.
And like, even after they happen, you may not think it was miraculous, but just go back and connect the dots, and you'll see the bridge to that encounter is pretty miraculous. But most of all, I always have to see it. No, this is signs of land. This is God saying, reassuring me, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you're on the right path.
I mean, there is only the path.
Yeah.
There is no wrong path.
Right.
Really. It's just the path.
Sometimes I need reassurance.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to accept, but there is no wrong path.
Yeah.
And listening to you guys talk today, it is, if you allow God to affirm that for you every day, he will. He will. It's all around you every day.
Yeah.
It's just us. Like you've been talking about, it struck me because this is something I've been really, really meditating on is it's not achieving. It's not enlightenment. It's not the destination. It's not getting somewhere. It's not figuring something out. It's not being worthy enough. It's not being saved. It's not achieving salvation. It's literally tapping into something that is around you. We are in a God's love soup.
Yeah.
We are swimming through it every day. We just don't let it touch our skin. We think it's somewhere else, but you just have to sink into it. And then you realize that we're swimming in the soup of it.
Yeah.
God's love we're literally, you can,
Yeah.
it's here right now.
Yeah. And the unworthiness just creates this illusion that feels real.
That feels real. Because this thing's just doing its job. I mean, this brain, we can't hold it against it for doing its job. It's literally evolved to make sense out of a senseless environment. This is crazy. This is chaotic. There is no assurance. And all it's going to do is try to make you feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's doing its job, fearing, worrying.
Yeah.
It's just computing.
Yeah.
Safety, 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 safety. And then we bring all our trauma and all our life into it.
Right.
And we're just feeding that information in there our whole life.
Right.
It's sinking down into the heart. I read something, I'm reading this book called Eager to Love, and it's Richard Rohr's book about St. Francis of Assisi. And if you don't know anything about St. Francis of Assisi, he's like my guy. He is like the first guy to pretty much say God was everywhere, and the animals and the brothers and sisters of the earth. And he left the church and basically made church earth, basically. But he talks about the love of giving our fears over to God, not ridding ourselves of them. They're never going to stop coming. It's always going to be there, but it's just
yes. Hand it off. Hand it off.
Again, it is a vessel of giving something to God. So if you can give the glory to God, you also have to give your fear to God.
Yes.
He wants it all. It's this other thing too about, my whole life it's been like, how do I love God better? How can I love God? God wants to be loved by me. And I'm realizing it's like, it may be the opposite. Mm-hmm. It may be God just wants to love me.
Yeah.
And it's letting God love you.
Right.
And not so much us striving to like be this thing 100%. To love God the right way. He just wants to be in you. He just wants to like
flow on in.
He just wants to be there.
Yes.
It's we just don't let him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when I was talking about what I was realizing. I've heard it so many times that we are children of God. Even last week we had a man, Siri Gopal. He's a Sikh. He's a laughter yoga teacher. He's amazing. And he refers to himself, just to really break free of hearing something so many times, child of God. He calls himself a baby of God.
Yeah.
And really surrenders into that loving flow. And because I realize, if I don't see that God, in a way, it's an easy end around to go, I'm doing this for everyone else. I'm serving everyone. But if I'm not letting, there's something, because the fear doesn't want to become vulnerable enough to let God in.
Yeah.
And that's
Scary.
so if I'm willing to face that, which is the craziest fear that you would think. I mean, but that's what fear is. It's insanity, man. It's like it's seeing insanity, it's trying to calculate, but if I can because the biggest thing, the people in my when I'm at school, the people I work with, anywhere I go, the biggest thing that transforms any situation is when I feel loved and joyful, and I'm laughing, and I'm letting them know they're loved, I'm loved, and I'm acknowledging that. That lights people up way more than anything else. And it makes no rational. It overrides all rationality.
Yeah.
It just opens everything up, and in comes, because you're doing this, that flow. It's a living flow. And it made me think of the other day, the scene in, I don't know if you've watched it, I don't think you were a big fan. I was a little bit younger when like Empire Strikes Back came out, and Luke Skywalker's, Yoda's always telling him, just let it come in. And he's like, I think he's raising the X-Wing
fighter. Yeah.
And he's got it for a minute. He's letting it flow. But then that voice comes in to try to do it for him or protect him. And then it goes back in the swamp, and he's crushed. And then Yoda's just like,
well, that's like Peter.
Yeah.
Peter walking on water, and Jesus goes, "You're doing it, buddy."
Yeah.
And he falls right in.
Yep.
He goes, "You let go. You just looked at me, and you were doing it."
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I'm doing it. Bloop.
Exactly. I want to throw this on the table though, and not to be. I got a few things like you guys listening to you. My brain was just going crazy. The trick. It gets tricky. Here's where it gets tricky, and this is where I'm at in my life is. We can talk about the getting the series regular. You can talk about the meeting the fan to give you the affirmation that you need, the parking space. You can talk about the joy and the laughter and making people feel good. And you can talk about the getting healed and the remission and the sickness never coming back. The real trick is when the opposite of all that happens.
Oh, yeah.
And you still have to abide in that love. And you still have to know you're on the path. And you still have to know that this is from God.
Yes.
Because it's the whole spectrum of the experience. And it's easy to look back and be grateful for all those things. But my wife is going to photograph a teenager who is dying from cancer, like this week, and her family wants to document it in a photo shoot. And how do you walk through that with the same exact acceptance and love that you do when you get healed? I mean, that's the tricky stuff.
Well, the thing is, the whole story and why this story even mattered of the woman getting healed is because she was in that situation.
Yeah.
Right? Like this stuff, I agree with you. It means nothing if it can't be applied. If it can't be applied to everything and everyone.
And it's not our, we are, if we're going to go, like I'm thinking of the drop at me Jesus, like if we are just the ball, Jesus is always going to kick the field goal. It's always going to go in, but it may not be what we wanted.
Yeah.
So that guy getting the series regular, I'm glad that happened, but something else just as amazing. If you truly live in acceptance and trust and faith and love, whatever would have happened to that man and whatever would have happened to that woman, if you can walk in that, but I feel like a lot, it's human nature to find ourselves incapable of walking through those moments, and we can get angry and we can feel abandoned, and we can say that this is not fair and this and that, but it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. It's the pain and the joy. If we can accept it and walk through it with love and let God love us through it all, like that is the depth of life, man.
Yeah, but like what's important to note here is like the person you're talking about, that girl, she's she's not an example of anything. She's a person.
Yeah.
And I'm sending love and light to that person
100%.
right now. Because unless I talk to that person, then I don't know where she is. I don't know where her, maybe no one's ever talked to her on the depth of love. Because when you said, when we walk in, because I've worked with like a student who had a blood transfusion because he had leukemia, and I would go up to the IC, whatever, like the most.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Very few, and he was, thankfully in his case, he, regained his health. I didn't even recognize him, but I had to empty myself. I think this is touching on what you're saying. I had to empty myself of any and all conclusions of what might happen and just be a loving vessel.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Period.
it.
Be a loving vessel.
Period.
Yeah.
Take that sentence and apply it infinite.
To everything.
Yes.
Be a loving vessel.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do that.
Yeah.
That's all God wants.
That's it.
right.
Be a loving. I almost start crying.
Yeah.
When you said that. Be a loving vessel. That is. Here's my book. It's called "Be a Loving Vessel." It's one page.
Right. And
Be a loving vessel.
That's the message that came out of the people that survived the Holocaust. They were
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And they saw it, and they said, "Be a loving vessel." People that have gone through slavery
Yes.
and came out and transformed the United States of America through
Yes.
ministers stepping up. Like we've had John DeBerry, who's was a representative from Tennessee. He came on the show, and he was at Martin Luther King's last speech. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr., and he saw the power of empty yourself and just become a loving
Meekness,
vessel.
he called
He
it.
said
Meekness.
meekness is not weakness. Is
No.
what he said.
And here's the other deal. Think about this. I just read this. When Jesus came back when he was resurrected, he was seen. There was three sightings. What did he come back as? A gardener, a fisherman, and just a man on the street. Now this is the resurrected Christ,
Right.
and he puts himself not in a
Right.
Pharisee.
Yeah.
He came back as a worker,
Right.
a common man,
Yeah.
to say, "Hey, I'm here. I'll be with you always. I've got to go."
Well, those three.
Meekness is not weakness.
That's right.
No. And those three representations are very metaphoric. Like,
Metaphysical.
yes,
Metaphorical.
because it's saying, be a loving vessel. How am I a loving vessel? I have to plant seeds of love,
Seeds.
right? And what else? I have to accept and receive my good, that God's providing for me all the time. I have plenty of fish. I just have to be willing to go and accept them.
Throw your
And
net. Cast your net.
finally, I don't have to be anything other than I can have it all just right where I am.
On the street. Man on the street.
I could be living as great as the greatest example ever given as me, right
That's it.
here,
Done.
as a vessel of love.
Yeah.
Done.
I'm doing all three things.
Sow your seed, cast your net, be a vessel.
Yeah.
Done. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, a big thing that's changing my life, and Darrell's talked about many examples of how he'll use this when he's walking the hill in the morning. And you know how we talk about these things, and just like anything related to the spiritual growth, and it's like the same sentence 10 years later hits again,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh. So lately, if I'm driving on the freeway, if I go and Save On or whatever exists, CVS or Trader Joe's, or everyone here is God. Every single, anywhere I go, if I just do that, that's again, be just empty vessel. Forget, be the man on the street, but we're all divine. That's
Yes.
why Jesus. I mean, if in the stories, Jesus, there wasn't like a film crew rolling with Jesus. He's the star. It was just he was a very common. He treated himself as a common person, and he would walk into the places.
He was, because he wasn't an ordained member of the Hebrew church. He was just
right. He was so aware of his divinity.
Yeah,
and he would walk into these places where people were talking the talk, but not living it, and just standing and become an empty vessel, hear what they're saying, and just kind of eviscerate the whole argument that they were using that was not in alignment with what they were allegedly teaching. And then everyone would go, whoa, who's this guy? This is what we've been coming for.
Yeah.
Well,
Not everyone, but many people.
Yeah.
Well, you're a performer, and this is a great example of meekness is not weakness, because when I switch from the need to making a good impression, the idea of I have to make a good impression, to, you know what? Like, it's like Gloria sometimes had photo shoots, and I've had to show up for some things. I go, what am I going to do? Like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? And you know what it is? Just love them. And the difference I've felt from, oh my God, I got to do a decent presentation or a decent performance, to, you know what? All I have to do is love the hell out of the people in the audience. Then all of a sudden, a higher power takes over.
Yeah.
And I'm at my best, and magic. I'm loving everybody in there, and I feel loved, and I'm going by intuitive ideas that I could have never planned. And it's incredible. And the same thing in a situation like your wife is going to. If I get preoccupied with, oh my God, this is horrible. How should I act in this
worldly?
Yeah, the worldly
circumstances.
Yes, perception of this. I'm headed. I can't do it. I mean, I will do it, but it's not going to be pleasant for me.
Look at the world today.
Yeah.
If we just go by worldly facts, who would get out of bed?
Nobody.
Because the world it's seemingly out of control, horrible things left and right. But you got to meet it like you meet everything, and ask yourself, given the circumstances, what is the most loving way I can respond to this moment?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that every second of your day.
Yes.
Given the set of circumstances that is in this room with me, you, and the cameras, and the studio, what's the most loving way I can respond to this situation?
Yes.
And most of the time, it's just being present and a vessel of love, and being open to receiving your vessels of love overflowing. It's like I was reading that says it's we can't focus on the half full or the half empty. What if we are a bowl of water that has a constant stream flowing into it, that as we spill over, we are constantly full?
That's the way. Yeah.
That's it. And that is God. That is God's love. It is the stream of water into our full bowl that gives us enough to splash out into the world, but we do not feel depleted. No. And that's that is the truest. That's the flow. Yeah. You want to talk about flow? It's really just letting God's love flow through you as much as you can. Every moment.
Yeah, and that's what Christ brought to people, the living water.
The living water.
Like that prostitute seated by the well.
That's it.
She came to the well on her own, and he met her there. And I think there's a reason why well and wellness go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tap into our eternal wellness.
Yes.
And then when we have the audacity, and I'm speaking from experience, I've worked in a lot of different situations with, worked in prisons, I've worked in jails, I've been teaching special education for 27 years. I've been doing a lot of things. And I think the reason I signed up with it, because I was raised Catholic. I heard about this guy, Jesus, who could go anywhere. And if it worked, my mind was like, if it worked, it should work everywhere. And this is why I look for principles, not rules. Mm-hmm. I look for
not rules, tools.
We look for tools.
We don't give you
to tap
rules
into
here,
these
funniest
principles.
thing. We give you tools,
and we can really bring heaven back into a situation where people's minds think it's hell. And like, if we have the audacity to do our morning routine, practice it, like attune ourselves to this love, that inner well, and walk in and let that love flow to the people by being an open vessel, like the mom, the dad, the aunt, the person, like just bringing heaven back into that situation. There's no limit to what, I don't even want to say can happen, because like you're saying, it's not necessarily, it's the feeling, it's the awareness, it's the remembrance of who we are. That's all that.
Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
If you're open to the love and to the present moment, it doesn't matter what happens.
No.
Because you're
Right.
prepared.
Right.
You're prepared to respond if you are
Right.
full of love.
Yes.
That's right. And then
You know?
amazing things can
Yeah.
happen as well. Things can shift, things can transform. But like when Darrell and I talk about funniest thing this happened, or I ran into Penny, or I this kid made a friend, or this, for me, and Darrell and I talk about this a lot, it's not the $20 bill I found on the ground. It's that I had just opened myself up
Yeah.
to the divine flow, and that like the universe winked at me through that, saying, "You're on the
Yeah.
road. I got you."
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's the awareness that the universe has got me, that God's got me,
Yes.
that love. That is the thing that I do this for. And the little things that happen, and I find that the more I give thanks for those, the
Yes.
more I see them, and the
Yes,
more
yes.
they happen. But again, all of that stuff is just the reminder that God's got me, that I am loved, that I am love, and that I'm powerful. And by being, but power is, everyone has power. Everyone is powerful. And we cut ourselves off from it sometimes when our minds and our fears and our doubts and our worries take over. But power is not something to be struggled for or fought for. It's like, I think of it like a blender. You plug it in, the power flows in.
Yeah.
When we plug ourselves into God, the power flows in. And when we can remember, that's why we promote the morning routine of meditation, just some form of simple meditation, inspired reading, and some form of affirmative prayer, whether it's just writing an affirmative version of what your day is going to be like, or giving thanks for things, whatever. Some using my own voice to give thanks, so that I am plugging myself into the power, and then I'm not struggling with anyone.
That's maintaining the vessel.
Yeah.
It's maintaining the vessel. God's the
Exactly.
toe. You just got to keep your leather on your ball nice
Yeah.
and soft. You have to massage it.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for the
Yes.
kick. I just want to be. My meditation of late is to do everything you said when any of the things I fear come to pass.
Yeah. That's
If
the
I get
best.
sick,
Yeah.
if I don't get the job, if my
right.
wife suddenly dies, to be able to see the love of God in that.
Yes.
And be thankful for the experience of the depth of the grief and the depth of the pain and the depth of the suffering, because that is just as beautiful
Right.
and that is just as important, and it is just as part of God's plan as the joy and the happiness and the bright dark night of the soul, bright light of the sun. It's all, if we are abiding in God's love, it's all beautiful.
Right. But I would only say that's true if it all leads us back to the love and the joy.
I mean, I don't think it's leading anywhere. I think if you're there, you're there.
But I
If-
disagree. I think that the grief and the transformation always leads back to the joy. I do believe joy is the strength.
100%, 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
It will always lead
And it's
back
not
to
a
the
joy.
joy.
I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
Like I'm not judging the words. I'm just saying, like, in the my schema of how I think about it, that works for me because I realize if I turn all of that over to God,
Yes.
it will all come out more loving, more an open vessel.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
I think I was saying if you're abiding in the love of God,
Yeah. That's right.
then you're already there at the beginning of the grief
Yes.
for the bad thing, that God's love will take you through
100%.
to joy, and it'll be a deeper joy.
That's right.
And it deepens the experience of the love.
Yeah.
You know?
And then we'll be even better able, because
Yes.
Darrell doesn't talk
Yes.
about the shit that he's been through. That's fucking but this is the guy.
Yeah.
Because he used these principles.
Yes.
And we don't make a point to talk about all the stuff, because this stuff doesn't matter. It's where we end up being led, which is to be more.
I can't
Yes,
believe you're
yes.
saying that, Ed.
Yes.
Because look at this note I wrote to myself.
And I do I appreciate the discussion, and I'm
Yeah.
just I learned so much by okay, I hear what you're saying.
Totally.
Let's see how it all
This
fits.
is the conversations that everyone needs to be
Yeah,
having. I have
totally.
a men's group of my guy friends that I've tried to get together every week to have coffee to talk about stuff like this, because
Yeah.
we're all figuring
Yeah.
out.
Right.
We're all in it together, man.
Yeah. University used to mean to understand the principles of the universe. I mean,
Yes.
not just
Yes.
And back to Assisi, he says he was the first guy to leave, not leave the church, but he left the organized religion and followed his intuition.
Oh,
and started
yeah.
following that inner compass you were talking about. That is God.
Well, and they hated him for it, but then later on they made him a saint.
Exactly. Which is isn't that what we do?
That's right.
Isn't that what we do?
And that's why a lot of like the more nature-oriented religions and stuff were like castigated or judged so harshly because now you're getting into mysticism that you cannot control or own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you gonna say?
Oh, so what I was going to say, so we also this all brings us back to the idea of the prostitute went to the well, the followers followed Jesus. Like I have to go to, like I heard a great saying, you could bring a horse to water and you can't make him drink, but you can salt his oats. And this show is about salting your oats, listeners. We hope we're salting your oats so that you'll want to do these like a morning routine, because it really is in the morning, it is imperative that I get my tuning fork tuned into the harmony of God, the universe, love. Because then that makes it easier throughout my day to turn over those fears, dismiss them, hand them away, and maintain a loving approach to life, right? But it's funny that you brought up my past, because I just wrote to myself, my life wasn't unfortunate. My life is proof God loves me.
Boom.
Because I went through all that and we're here.
And we're here.
And my brother is fine and I'm fine. My brother sits through court cases. He's retired, but while he was a federal agent, because he had to testify on a lot of different things. So the defendant, most of the time, the attorney would bring up, something like his parents, his parents divorced when he was 6. And everyone goes, oh my goodness. And my brother's there. And my brother starts thinking, he goes, and then I start thinking, that's it?
Yeah.
Like, that's it?
Yeah. But you know what? For some people it is.
Yeah. But you know what? I am living proof for myself that God loves me. Like, I've always been taken care of. The right person shows up at the right time.
That's right.
But now I'm fully engaged in it. In the beginning, this is key. I could have taken all that experience, and I was with self-pity, envy of others. Why did this happen to me? I could have went so far away from recognizing the existence of a loving God to where people would have said, oh, of course, it's because of all those things. Thank God, in a moment of desperation, the right people showed up. But now I'm saying those right people were always showing up. I wasn't ready for them in those moments.
That's right.
But when I was ready, and I guarantee you, if you're thinking about a loved one, a child or a nephew or a friend of a friend, and you're like, oh my God, this guy is just self-destructive, I am telling you, keep your hopes up. There is God sending him lifelines or her lifelines. And there is going to be a moment that, like, it's like the moment is like jumping out a window open on a moving train. And I have and I'm going to land on, like, in a big bed of pillows.
Right.
The train is moving, the window opens, but I got to be willing to jump. But when you jump, and you're going to land in the pillows.
Yep. And I would recommend, don't try to take it up with the person when they're in the throes. Take the time in your prayer to see them.
Yes.
Because what you're then doing is sending out these thoughts of receptivity that when they're open will help them to receive those thoughts and recognize. Don't fight with the part that's fighting already. See it. Be so damn optimistically faithful that I don't even care how you're acting. I know who you are.
Yes.
Like everyone that I hear stories online, they died for a time and they came back with near death type things. They all say the only purpose to be here is love.
Yeah.
Like one guy died, he came back. The only thing he was thinking about was comforting one of the nurses who thought they were responsible for and was taking it so hard that he was dying. He up there was seeing them and going, please stop worrying. I love you. This is not on you to do. Become an empty vessel. Let God love you.
Yeah.
Do what you can do. Like, the message is love to return. That's why really you're closer than you think.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we come back to that, everything else takes care of itself. And I was thinking, those horses have been given a bad name because there's not a horse on earth that if you was thirsty and you took it to water would not drink. That's a human problem, right?
I'm from Texas and I've never heard the salty oats.
Isn't that a great one?
Amazing.
You know who told me that?
Mm-hmm.
Robert Burridge.
Right.
That's good.
This guy,
Right.
The artist.
Right.
I went up to
But I was thinking
San Luis Obispo, and this guy said, I go, man,
That's
is
good.
good.
The thing is, that's a human problem. Only a human would go, I'm gonna cling so, and it's forget the making fun of it. It's me. I'm gonna cling so much to my worry that even though I'm thirsty, I'm not gonna drink.
Yep.
And that was Jesus' main problem. There's that he encountered with human minds.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm telling you, I'm bringing you the water.
It's right here.
And that's what the whole wedding feast story was that you told recently.
Yes, the wedding feast.
Like there was a feast. They were inviting the people, but
Everybody had an excuse. Well, I got to take care of my father. Well, I really got to do this. Oh, my job. So finally, I just said, all right. And you guys want to come? And everyone who had not the meek, because they had nothing else, they were like,
they weren't putting anything.
They
above
weren't anything
the
above.
invitation.
Because how often does our good come and we think we're not worthy of it? There must be a catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, read this part of this reading. We got to wrap up the show soon.
am
Yeah,
I
the
gonna read
Cohen.
this?
This is a good reading because bringing it all back around, there is an abundant supply available to all of us.
All right.
And when we can let that in, and the more we recognize our worthiness of it, the more it comes. And it doesn't make us any better or worse. It just allows us to do more with our love when we are fully engaged and fully allowing God's goodness and abundance to take care of us.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
When I walked into the hotel room, my jaw dropped and my eyes opened to saucer size. The room looked straight out of the Palace of Versailles. Thick padded gold wallpaper, gold leaf French colonial furniture, a separate sitting room, and an ultra plush decor. There must be some mistake, I thought, looking at my key. When I called my sponsor to double check if her organization had selected such an elegant room for me, she answered, "Of course it's for you. We appreciate you and want you to be comfortable." Okay, I can live with this, I thought. If we believe we are unworthy, we will question or doubt our good when it comes to us. We will believe there is some hidden motive or catch, or we may fear that it all be snatched away as easily as it came. These thoughts come to me often.
Yeah.
If we know our worth, we will attract and accept our blessings in a spirit of joy and celebration. We will see our experience as an affirmation that we live in an abundant universe and delight in passing generosity along at our next opportunity.
Yes. That's good, man. That's the thing. When I let that good in, I just want to give it away because it feels so good. And then I'm not clinging to it because I know it's coming from an abundant, loving universe.
Well, are we ready to tell a little story before Johnny sings us a song?
Johnny, you going to sing us a song?
Yeah.
All right, hold on one moment here. We found one little story about when Johnny Marfa went to church recently. You got that there?
Yeah, I got it. Of course.
It was years since he'd been to church. Inside, he found a fully stocked bar with a Guinness on tap, cold brew. On one wall, there was a row of decanters with fine Irish whiskey, Waterford crystal glasses. This is nice.
Wait, but he was there for
he went to
for a confession.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, how did that line get missed? So yeah, thanks for pointing it out. So he had gone into the confessional, as a good. He had been a long time since he'd been there, so he wanted to,
He was full.
Full of it.
He was full of stuff he wanted to get off.
Yeah, he
his
wanted
chest.
to release that stuff, so he wanted
Like
to become
he's
an
been
empty
talking
vessel.
about.
Yeah, so he found inside this booth with the confessional. He found a fully stocked bar, Guinness on tap. One wall, there was a row of decanters with fine Irish whiskey, Waterford crystal glasses.
Wow.
On the other wall was the dazzling array of the finest cigars, chocolates. Then the priest entered, and Johnny told him, "Father, forgive me. It's been a very long time since I've been to confession, but must first admit that this confessional box is much more inviting than it used to be." The priest replied,
Get out, you moron. You're on my side.
Okay. Andy, you want to come on in here and set us up? We got a song,
That's
a brand new
good.
song,
Well,
yeah?
Ed, I just told you, though, you know what I remember this morning?
What?
My military name, the pronunciation. It brought me so much joy.
Yeah, let's
I
hear
forgot
it.
about it. Because my last name is Fazaro. Marfa forgot I was Italian for some reason.
Okay.
But no one in the military called me Fazaro. They didn't know how to, so they'd go, Fazaro! It was always Fazaro.
That's
The ro,
good.
like
That's good.
the RO was like the Fazaro, get over here. I was like,
It's a very American.
yeah.
It's Americanized.
It's great.
That also tells me how much trouble you got in. Bizarro, get in my office.
Fazaro, where the hell are you?
Oh, by the way, if you want this new, we can tell the story next week. But Darrell, what's the name of your website that they can find us on?
This'llmakeyouhappy.com.
Darrell's told the story before about the Statue of Liberty,
Being a
metaphysical teacher.
It's actually a symbol. It's a symbol of personal empowerment. Personal empowerment.
Yeah, so we can go over it again next time and talk about the Nancy Norman piece.
Miracle.
The
Yes.
miracle. But go to this'llmakeyouhappy.com. You can order a copy of this amazing postcard and learn the amazing history and meaning of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. The symbolism.
She's always stepping out boldly.
Yes. People don't know that she's actually not standing still.
There's always, yes, we're always moving forward. Okay, what's the name of the song, Mr. Marfa?
This song is a brand new song. You're probably one of the first people to ever hear it.
Oh,
Just
wow.
wrote it like within the last week or so.
Wow.
It's called The Rose,
All right.
and it's kind of what we're talking about. It's just a song about letting the gardener garden.
Nice.
Good to go?
Good to
He's
go.
good.
It's a ballad this time. If you took all the time I've been trying to keep a hold like some old rubber band, all the days that I've spent just trying to make some damn sense, you'd have a whole lot of time on your hands. And if you stack those on top of the sorrow, each one a smooth little stone in the sand, from all the nights that I've cried just trying to figure out why, well, you could fill up that old Rio Grande. But for every poor piece of my heart on the floor, there's a part underneath that ain't as hard as before. And that's the way that it goes, and Lord only knows why we get the thorn with the rose. It's just the point, I suppose. It's just the way the garden grows. It's just the way the garden grows. For every broken piece of my heart on the ground, there's a part underneath that I've finally found. And that's the way that it goes, and Lord only knows why we get the thorn with the rose. It's just the point, I suppose. It's just the way the garden grows. It ain't the life that I chose, and Lord only knows how many thorns we got left to go. That ain't the point, I suppose. You just gotta let the garden grow. You just gotta let the garden grow.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
We're gonna end on a high note. I don't want to ruin a good cup of coffee. I mean, that was fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This
Goosebumps.
Mr. Marfa, Johnny Marfa and the Lights.
Yes,
God
sir.
bless you, man. Thank you
Thanks.
so much for being a part of the show.
Thanks for having me.
If people are interested, like some may be, to find what you're up to, is there a link?
What's the best way for them to follow you
Yeah,
along?
you can follow on Instagram at Johnny Marfa and the Lights. And then we're on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. We're playing, if you're in LA, we've got a residency every Saturday night at this place called the Desert 5 Spot, which is this cool honky-tonk in Hollywood.
Wow.
On the top of a roof, the roof of a hotel. So it's like it's this really cool joint. We play every Saturday night.
Brilliant.
To people two-stepping. There's a two-stepping instructor. So
Oh
you can
my
come learn how to
God.
two-step, and then we play music you can two-step too.
Oh man, this gets better by the minute.
Yeah.
Well, Indy, did you enjoy that?
That was spectacular. That was amazing.
Yeah, there's nothing left to say, but thank you for being part of Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed right here at Chobo Studios. Woohoo!
$500.
Really?
See, $200 for you, sir.
$100 for you.
What the heck? Oh, no.
$100 for you. No way. Are you serious? Yeah, I'll give you $100. Of course. Thank you so much.
When you record your podcast at Chobo Studios, you're helping people in need. Here at Chobo, we take a bold stance on helping the community by giving away 10% of all revenue, not just profit, to kind, hard-working people in the streets of Los Angeles. And thanks to all these wonderful podcasters, we've been able to give $1,400 this year alone through our kindness initiative, Chobo Kindness. Brought to you by Chobo Studios, LA's premier podcasting powerhouse. Follow for more.